welcome to Unfiltered. This is another episode where there will be a minimum of ranting. For those of you who like the rants, you'll have to wait another 2 weeks. This week and next week, both dedicated to the Wings Over Myrtle Beach airshow. That's right. It was a trip I took the last weekend in April, and down to Myrtle Beach. Apparently, it was Myrtle Beach's first air show in a bunch of years. So we're going to start with how they failed. And they failed in a number of ways. Number one was the parking. Saturday, nightmare was probably the word that most people use down in that area. Sunday, they got a little bit more of a handle on it. I rode into the air show with a buddy that I met down there because fail number two was the fact that their photographers' packages that were extra pricey tickets were included a parking pass for the remote lot that was 7 miles away, which means you had to take a bus with all your gear. And another thing that I did not like about satellite parking for photographers is because us photographers like to be within walking distance of our car for the simple fact that between shooting static displays on the ground in the morning before the flying starts, we can zip back out to the car between shooting statics and shooting the air show, which is usually starts around noon flying time. Usually it's around noon for air shows. So parking was messed up. The ticket and parking for the photographers, which is it's a good bit of cash to put out for a few extra privileges. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. Well, actually right now, because the second fail, part of the weekend photographer's package was a entrance on Friday, which is not technically an air show day. It's the day that acts arrive. It's the day that a lot of the static displays arrive and get parked on the ramp. So the photographer's package allowed us access to Friday, which means we were on the ramp as some of the airplanes came taxiing out. The problem with Friday, the great thing about Friday, let me also, I'll be nice and start with the great thing about Friday, and what made the photo package well worth it, was the fact that nobody else was on the airfield except workers and photographers and the flyers and people involved with the air show. That makes taking pictures of the aircraft on the ground beautiful, because you don't have to Photoshop people out. And you don't have to do a lot of Photoshop work to get a nice airplane with nothing else in it. The problem where they failed on Friday, and I will say a huge fail, was that they did not have even one concession stand open for anything to eat or drink. No water available all day long on Friday for the photographers. Now, come on, people. You get that fixed by next year. You know, you should treat your photographers like gold. The people that want to pay that extra money to get in and take pictures, because guess what? Those pictures end up on Facebook or end up on a show like this, and we're going to look at a lot of them today, once I get through with my little rant. So, the parking, the lack of concessions on Friday. Saturday came. I rode in with a buddy on Saturday because of the remote parking thing, and he paid extra. Again, it's all about the money. For a parking spot that was within walking distance of the airfield. Unfortunately, when we got there and got in line, the people that were doing the parking, and I don't hold anything against them, they're volunteers. And I thank you for your efforts. And again, you know, it's a great way to get in and see the air show for free. If you volunteer, sure, you got to do a little bit of work, but it's helping out your community a lot. Myrtle Beach, I believe I heard they were expecting 100,000, and I'm not sure if that is 100,000 all the way around for both days or 100,000 each day. I'm thinking probably both days. So the volunteers, when it came to parking, they started at the back of the lot. So we were one of the first ones in to the air show because, you know, the early bird gets the worm, and photographers who pay all that extra money get there early. So we were, you know, some of the first folks in, and we were parked all the way at the furthest end of what they called the gold lot. It still required a shuttle, unless you wanted to walk probably 3/4 of a mile to the gate from where we were parked in a field. And the strange thing is there was a gate right next to where we were parked that wasn't open. So, parking, a nightmare. Sunday was a little bit better. I parked over in the remote lot because I planned to only take the video camera in on Sunday. And I figured I'd have no problem riding the shuttle bus from there over with just the video camera. So Sunday wasn't bad. I was the very first one on the lot because I got there at 6:30 and the air show didn't start till 8:30. Gates at the air show didn't open till 8:30, which meant that the buses, I figured, would start running around 8. They actually didn't leave the parking lot till about 8:15. But from where I was, I, you know, saw where the buses were lining up. I parked my car right next to one of them, scoped out where the exits were, so I'd have a heads up at the end of the day. Jumped on the bus, went in. Coming out of the air show, I left a little bit before the Blue Angels finished up their routine. They were just finishing up their routine as I was standing out by the bus. And I got on the bus, and as soon as the bus was filled, it headed off to the parking lot. I was on the highway within 10 minutes of getting back to my car, which is amazing because in the extra pay lot on Saturday, my buddy and I, it took us almost an hour to get out of that lot. So, what can you do? All in all, a fairly good show. Not a lot of huge acts, not a lot of military acts. There was the F-35 on static display. They didn't, I think they took off once. And the F-16 Viper demo team out of Shaw Air Force Base with their show aircraft piloted by Major John Rain Waters. That's right. We'll be talking about him a little bit later with some great pictures. And of course, the United States Navy Blue Angels. There was also a demonstration by an OV-10, which is an big propeller observation and light attack aircraft that was used in Vietnam. Awesome, weird, bug-looking of a plane. We'll talk about that. A lot of ground stuff. DC-3, American Airlines flagship Detroit was there. So let's let's jump into the pictures. And, you know, Friday arrival day is fun. And it puts me right back in my element when I was in the Navy, out on the tarmac, live jets coming in, moving around, exhaust and intakes to watch out for, propellers to watch out for. The old adage is you keep your head on a swivel because there's stuff going on, and it's a very, very dangerous environment to be in, especially if you're not focused on what you're doing. So, one of my favorite aircraft that taxied across the runway was the find my mouse here, set up my pictures. Was the F-35. It's one of the newest weapons in our arsenal, and I was like, this is great, because generally you can catch them flying, you can catch them on the ground on a static display. And once they're on a static display and they've got people all around them and they've got cones all around them with a rope so you can't get too close. Not all the aircraft are like that, but the F-35, apparently super secret things going on with it. But as it was taxiing in, I started snapping pictures. One of my favorite angles is I like to show the guy directing the planes in. That was my job in the Navy, was what they call a plane captain. And so this is the first shot I got. Now this F-18 is running, and it's taxiing into place. And the crew chief giving hand signals to the pilot, telling him which way to turn to get him in just the right spot. So I started snapping these pictures, and as you can see, I was moving around, getting different angles. This one I thought was pretty awesome because you can see the pilot in the cockpit. So I'm snapping around. I don't know why I keep coming back to my picture, because I'm not the one that's interesting here. I got over this, and if you can see the arm coming into the camera frame on the left-hand side of your screen, that was a dude that came over and told me no pictures until after they put the rope and the cones up. Yeah. So, Air Force guys, what can you do, you know? I gave him a box of crayons and sent him on his way. So, anyway, apparently, you know, hey, it's their choice. Granted, I wasn't the only photographer snapping pictures, so, you know, a bunch of us got a whole bunch of pictures as it was taxiing in, and I got the shots that I wanted. But a rule like that, no pictures until after the cones, which are regular orange construction cones, and then they've put the string between the cones. And so I don't know, you know, I'm not sure what secrets that the cones and the string hides, but apparently it hides enough, and that's what it's all about. So once the cones and all the flags are on the plane and the cones are up, then you have to think about different ways to shoot the planes where you can eliminate a lot of the distractions in your photos. So probably the best photo of the F-35 that I got this weekend is this one right here. A low angle from the front, but not dead on. Everybody was shooting. A lot of people shoot this low angle dead on, and I usually do. But I looked at the F-35 and I said, you know, something just isn't right. So just off center, little off axis kind of shot, low angle of the nose of the F-35. So moving on to a little bit of stuff that happens during the show. Now, most air shows, I won't say most shows, I'll say a lot of shows, get a parachute team to bring in the American flag, and occasionally the jump team. I know the U.S. SOCOM paratroopers, they also bring in the POW flag. And I happen to be in, when I posted this on Facebook, I made the comment that it took a lot of planning to get these guys to line up just like they did and to be just in the right position for me to take this picture. But the truth is, this is sheer luck. The fact that I was in this spot, following this guy down with the POW flag, which to me is an important part of air shows, is remembering those who have gone before us, those who have fought for our freedoms, and those who have given the ultimate sacrifice so that we can do what we do. So I'm following him down, and the C-130 you see in the background was the plane that he jumped out of probably 3 or 4, 5 minutes earlier. Fantastic, and again, a lot of photography is just sheer luck of being in the right place at the right time and having the right things happen in front of you. Another plane that came in across the static ramp on Friday was the F-16, and again, showing the crew member, I think, is so important. And this was one of this one hasn't been processed yet, but I'll process this and eventually watermark it, and it'll be added to my collection. Because again, it's a different angle, and it tells a story. So what's coming up next? Okay, now we're going to start talking a little bit about Major Rain Waters. Rain is his call sign. And because he's a show pilot, he's not generally out at the Air Force booth or at the static display talking with folks. He's pretty much focused on the job he's got to do in the afternoon, which is the show. And I might add a complete full workout. When he comes out of that plane, he's drenched in sweat and probably feels like he's just fought an MMA match or played in a full football game or whatever. Wow. So this is Major Rain taking on one of his takeoffs, a low bank on takeoff, and you can see the afterburners in the back. And the next shots you're going to see are a series of shots. And if you notice the wings, none of these are actually pictures I'd post. These are the raw images. But you notice the condensation coming across the wings and the vapor that builds up around his planes as he's in this high G turn. And now these 9 pictures that I took, my camera shoots seven shots a second. And that was just over a second of time for all those that little series there. So that vapor cloud comes and goes, and no, it's not chemtrails. It's vapor trails, and if you look it up, it's a scientific thing that goes on with a subsonic piece in moving through the air creates the condensation. This photo here is one of my favorites. This is Major Waters as he pulled in with his crew chief. Had already given him the stop sign, and the crew chief stands at attention in front of the plane until the canopy comes up and the pilot disembarks the aircraft. Again, very, very military, because it's a show and it's a demonstration, and it not only points out the capabilities of the aircraft, but the discipline and the precision of the crew as well. So this is one of my favorites that came out of the show this week. And This next one has got to be my favorite. Everything that I shot all weekend, this is just the sweetest thing ever. This is Major Rain Waters, and come to find out, the little girl in the picture is one of his crew's daughters. So, and apparently he gets, she debriefs him after every flight. It keeps him sharp. So, so that's an awesome thing, you know. And when you think of pilots, you think of these old badasses flying around, and in reality, this is you know, a lot of what Major Waters and these guys that perform in air shows, this is what they do. On top of flying their plane, they are ambassadors of goodwill, and you know, it's fantastic. Let me get to a couple other quick. This is the OV1 that I talked about before, and it's the Mohawk. And it was an Army observation and light attack plane used in Vietnam, I believe in 1972. The Army National Guard or the Air National Guard started receiving some of them. And it's an experimental plane. So the gentleman that flies this is an air transport, certified air transport pilot, Dr. Joe Masesa, I believe is his name. And a great aircraft to look at. A lot of times it's on static display. Myrtle Beach, it actually flew. So that was a pretty cool thing to see. The old World War II P-51 on the top and the F-4U Corsair on the bottom. And this was one of those pictures that I thought just demanded that it be in black and white. So I didn't quite get full disc on the propellers, but you know, it's not a bad prop blur. We talked about veterans before, and remembering those before us. So every air show has tributes. This is the, I'm not exactly sure what the organization is called, but the display is called the Gold Star Memorial Wall, and the 5 battlefield crosses that you see in the front, one for every service. And you know, it's again, it's tribute, it's paying honor to the folks that gave their lives for this country, and it's an important thing. I thought I put the motorcycle in here, but I guess I put it at the end, or maybe I didn't put it in at all. We'll look at that next week. Blue Angels. Let's talk about the Blue Angels. I've only got 4 minutes or so left, and Lieutenant Tyler Davies, one of the solo pilots, on a low, fast pass. And you can see underneath where it says U.S. Navy on the plane, he's starting to form a little bit of condensation under there. Just at the top of the wing, back by the vertical stabilizers, you can see another little bit of condensation forming there. And again, it's speed is what causes that. This is the Fortis maneuver. So the 2 solo pilots fly down the length of the show line, one right side up, one wrong side down. And trying to get a good shot, you have to be in just the right spot, you know, as they come across, to get them just, you know, and snap at just the right time to get them perfectly lined up. And I'm a little bit off on this one, but again, just the capabilities of these planes, and this is one of the hardest pictures for photographers to get. And I had to crop this in quite a bit. This is one of the crossing maneuvers. The 2 solo pilots come at each other head on and fly past each other. And I don't want you to think that these are maneuvers, that a maneuver like this is at 18 inches apart. because these planes are probably 50, 60, 100 yards apart, but set up so that it looks very close to the spectators. This is probably a closer formation. This is the echelon formation, and I caught them at just the right spot where everything looks compact and tight. But in reality, they're a few feet apart anyway. And this is one of the pictures that I took a little extra time on and actually turned into a piece of art. As well as the next picture you're going to see. And this one here, it's a composite. This maneuver is called the double Farvel, with the two planes on the outside or right side up, and the lead pilot and slot pilot are upside down, inverted. You've heard the old movie quote, because I was inverted. Yeah. And again, I took the time, put this composite together, and turned, everybody has a shot. Every photographer has a Blue Angel shot against blue sky with this formation. I needed to do something different with it. So that's what I did. Anyway, I guess I forgot to put out the motorcycle ones, the tribute from Music Core. And we'll look at those at the top of next week's episode. But, those are some pictures. I've still got a bunch to go through. I think I shot 6,000 pictures between Friday and Saturday, and then video on Sunday. So we'll get a few more pictures in next week, and we'll get to some great video, as well as I'm going to try and get the okay to use some in-flight footage from major waters. So I'll work on that for next week. Until then, I'm Rick Blood. This is Unfiltered. Peace.